With students around the country returning to school, we're spending this week examining the state of education. Tonight, a lesson in literacy. According to one estimate, only about a third of elementary students are reading at grade level. In response, many schools are rethinking how they teach kids how to read. CBS's Brooke Silva Braga takes us into one of these changing classrooms for tonight's Eye on America.
A safe A. A safe A. I pine I. I pine I. O home O. O home O.
This is what a reading lesson now sounds like in a New York City first grade.
Now I'm adding an E to it.
Melissa Vega Jones going letter by letter, teaching the mysterious code of the English language.
It makes that letter O, that vowel, say its own name.
Do kids really need to be explicitly taught all these rules?
It makes the A say its own name.
For decades, most schools said no. Give kids time with books they like, and they'll mostly figure it out themselves. Not now. Specific, detailed instruction is taking over.
It was a big shift in my teaching and my understanding of how students learn to read.
I did notice when I walk in, there's this decoding strategies poster up there. Was that poster up here a year ago?
No. This year now, that's more based upon the science of reading.
The science of reading isn't so much a curriculum as a grassroots movement, best known for arguing that phonics, the relationship between letters and their sounds, is key to learning to read. It's powered by parents who believe the old system left their kids behind, and it's quickly transforming how reading is taught. 39 states and the District of Columbia have passed new laws or made new rules requiring schools to follow the science of reading approach.
That generally means new books and new teacher training with a focus on phonics.
What we were doing was not working for a large number of our students, over half.
Jason Borges is overseeing New York City's new reading program. After a partial rollout last year, it's in every classroom this fall.
Okay, very good.
And old approaches like letting kids look at the pictures to guess the word, so-called cueing, are being pushed to the past.
So cueing is out.
Okay, teachers cannot do it anymore.
They should not be doing it.
Instead, when Brielle Rosario flips through Cinderella,
The king's son was to give a ball.
she's taught to ignore the pictures and focus on the letter groups the class has spent hours drilling on.
We learned the welded sounds,
What is a welded sound?
like ONG song.
Research is showing this method does help, but somewhat modestly. A recent Stanford study found 2 years of the approach was like getting an extra quarter year of learning. Implementing the changes can be hard, and knowing just how far to push those changes is still being sorted out.
There has been obviously this giant swing across the country. We've seen it in state after state after state. I wonder how you think about the possibility of the pendulum swinging too far.
It is a concern, particularly for me. It's not just about phonics, right? There's so much more to teaching reading that I worry that things will be not only too reductive, being just phonics, but then also that, things do get taken a bit too far.
The nation's largest school system is now attempting that balance. The test results will be eagerly awaited.
So, name. Good job.
For Eye on America, Brooke Silva Braga in Brooklyn, New York.
Eye on America this week will focus on stories about education as students return to school. Tonight, we're examining the troubling trend of cyber criminals gaining access to your child's personal information, like school records, medical and mental health histories, and even social security numbers. CBS's Usher Qureshi shows us the high cost of cybercrime inside the classroom.
On a Monday morning in January 2023, a pre-dawn attack. When you walk into this room that morning and everything is dark, what goes through your head?
We know it was at a disaster level.
The head of IT for the Tucson Unified School District, Rabia Hamade, realized it was a cyber attack when nearly every printer suddenly spit out a ransom note.
Hello, if you are reading this, it means that your system were hit by a royal As a result, your critical data was not only encrypted, but also copied.
From there, it will be published online, and anyone on the internet, from the dark web, and even your employees will be able to see your internal documentation. So basically, we've done this to you. We're going to help you fix it, but you're going to pay us.
So it's extortion.
Absolutely.
Stacey Gossick says she fears for her boy's future, not knowing who has their stolen personal information. Your children's digital identities were compromised.
Their doctor's information, their bus stop information, if they walk to and from school, what bus stop they go to, their medical records, where we live, where we work, every bit of information about our lives, they have.
That's frightening.
It's terrifying.
CBS News, working with cyber investigation firm Guidepoint Security, found evidence that Tucson student and employee information has shown up on the dark web, where it could be sold for a price.
You're selling something to somebody on the black market. They're not good people looking for this information for nice reasons.
On the advice of law enforcement, the district refused to pay the ransom. It was offline for 2 weeks and spent close to $1 million rebuilding its computer systems. Data shows school districts have reported more than 1,600 cyber attacks across the U.S. over a 6-year span. More than 300 involved ransomware. Those have steadily been on the rise since the pandemic, when more students got online.
We've seen students as young as first grade have their identity compromised and abused because of attacks against school systems.
Doug Levin directs the cybersecurity nonprofit K-12-6. He says a district the size of Tucson Unified could spend several $1 million to build adequate cyber defenses.
Most significant attacks are being launched from overseas, and that's really quite a significant ask of school systems to have to defend against.
Anyone know what the definition of cybersecurity is without looking at the screen?
Cyber educator Brian Pitchman says another layer of defense, teaching kids like these Illinois summer campers to guard their passwords and spot scams.
If we're going to give students email accounts, you have to pass a cybersecurity class, very similar to how most corporations do it. They have cybersecurity training every year or every quarter, and so if you train the people how to protect the network, you've mitigated a big chunk of that risk.
What should you do if you think your account has been hacked?
I got it. I think that might be it. Yes!
Schools needing to prepare kids for a new threat. This one in cyberspace. For Eye on America, I'm Usher Qureshi in Tucson, Arizona.
On any given school day, more than 25 million kids ride a school bus. It is one of the safest vehicles on the road, with one exception. The vast majority of those buses have no seat belts. But that's about to change, as CBS's Mark Strassman reports in tonight's Eye on America.
Trouble is seconds away for these happy riders, suddenly bouncing around their school bus like sneakers in a dryer. Most of America's 500,000 school buses have no seat belts. Accident videos show the impact. Doug Williamson has to live it.
Heart was just crushed.
Even today.
Today.
His sister, Jennifer Williamson Kennedy, a 5th grade teacher, was killed in a school bus crash in 2018. The bus had lap belts, but not the much safer 3-point safety belts.
If they were all had safety belts that day, it would have been a better outcome.
Certainly would have had a better chance.
Yes, yes.
We watched this crash test in Indiana. A box truck moving 40 miles per hour hurtles into a stationary school bus. Crash dummies inside wearing 3-point seat belts barely moved, but the unbelted ones went flying. Over one 10-year period, 1,110 people were killed in school bus crashes, an average of 111 people a year.
Because of that, 8 states have laws on the books requiring seatbelts on new school buses.
It is horrific to watch those small bodies flying through the air.
In 2015, Mark Rosekind, then administrator of the National Highway Transportation Safety Administration, or NHTSA, recommended a first: seatbelts on school buses. Many in the industry fought back, especially about the cost, about $8,500 per bus.
They use that as the excuse not to take action in an area they know could save lives.
Another red flag: every yellow bus has no airbag for the driver. until now.
This is an industry first time that there's been 3-point lap shoulder belts as standard equipment.
Britton Smith's the president of Bluebird, a major bus manufacturer. Starting this fall, its new buses will offer 3-point seat belts for every passenger, and next year, a driver airbag at no extra costs.
The safety advocacy groups and safety agencies have been calling for it for years, and Bluebird is finally answering the call.
Remember, only 8 states mandate seat belts. Rosekind's hoping Bluebird's change clicks for every bus maker.
This should be a gauntlet. This should be the standard.
A milestone for the industry, starting a long ride to a safer future. For Eye on America, Mark Strassman in Westfield, Indiana.
Roughly 1 in 5 children in the U.S. don't get enough to eat each day. In tonight's Eye on America, we take a look at an innovative method that sets up farms inside schools, just down the hall from the students who need it most. Here's CBS's Roxana Saberi.
At Ashwaubenon High School near Green Bay, Wisconsin, past the tater tots and the fried chicken sandwiches, you'll find something much fresher.
When you get a bite of the salad, it's just amazing.
I eat it every day at school.
So fresh.
Do you know where it comes from? No idea.
It was grown and picked just down the hallway.
Fresh food can be grown easily in Wisconsin in the middle of the winter.
And there's no soil in sight. This indoor hydroponic garden relies on circulating water, special nutrients, and around-the-clock light from LEDs.
We've done tomatoes, beans, sugar snap peas.
Adding up to around 850 pounds of produce a month. Nutrition coordinator Caitlin Tariainen says that's enough to feed up to 2,000 students throughout the district.
A lot of our kids aren't exposed to fresh foods at home just because it's financially hard for the families to purchase those kind of things.
Is this the only place where they're getting fresh vegetables?
It may be, absolutely.
It sets up in about 45 minutes.
The system stemmed from the imagination of Wisconsin native Alex Tynk. Trained as an opera singer, he got into rooftop gardening in New York City between gigs.
They had squash growing right in the middle of Bushwick, Brooklyn.
Then decided to use what he'd learned to start a company called Fork Farms to help people grow their own food.
Food is already having to travel further and further to get from seed to plate. Our food system is failing us.
Which is why he sees this 2,500-year-old technique as the water and land-efficient farming of the future. And with nearly 1 out of every 8 American households facing food insecurity, Tynk says units like his can get people fresh food faster.
It's probably some of the best lettuce I've ever eaten.
Mark Gierach got grants to buy 2 of the $5,000 devices for the food bank he runs near Milwaukee.
As the cost of food continue to rise, it becomes more valuable than anything else. If you have the opportunity to have fresh produce on the table versus something canned or processed or nothing at all, how much better is life for you? And that's what we try to do. We try to make life better.
So did some plants die along the way?
Yeah, a lot.
A lot?
Yes, a lot.
In Milwaukee public schools, where school officials say more than 80% of students are economically disadvantaged, 80 flex farms have sprouted.
That's where it gets really exciting because now you have a community of people that are focused on doing this together and they're learning from each other.
And he says they're planting a healthier future together. For Eye on America, Roxana Saberi, Appleton, Wisconsin.
The average public school building in the U.S. is now nearly half a century old, which means a lot of communities are facing a lot of repairs. Congress passed a $1 trillion infrastructure package, but as CBS's Mark Strassman shows us in tonight's Eye on America, that hasn't meant instant or even timely relief for schools needing work.
So what do we got here? Right here, look at the top. The ceiling tiles right here are falling down.
Baker Heights Elementary is falling apart.
Down here, this is a water fountain that is in use.
Timothy Scott's job, save the school day, somehow patch whatever's broken.
Could you just fix this? Well, it could be fixed, it could be repaired, but we're pulling funding from the classroom.
Outside Baton Rouge, Baker, Louisiana is home to roughly 12,000 people. money is tight. The population and tax base are shrinking. The infrastructure's crumbling. All 5 school buildings were built in the 1950s.
Typically, when you have declining enrollment, it's tough to do anything.
Superintendent J.T. Stroder met us at one of Baker's 2 shuttered schools.
Our school infrastructure is reflective of community infrastructure as a whole.
Yes, I think they are. You can drive around the community and you'll see how those kind of match. The way a student feels about their surroundings and their atmosphere affects how they perform on academically.
America's infrastructure grades are in, and the grades are bad. Overall, America's infrastructure, from roads and bridges to drinking water, get a grade of C-. And the needed investment to bring America's schools up to par, $870 billion.
So where are we going? Going down to the Wendy's.
Mayor Darnell Waits showed us Baker's challenges.
Everything that I do is infrastructure.
You know what the problems are. Why don't you just fix them?
It takes money. And there's a lot of other things that's going on at the same time. You want infrastructure, but you want to be safe. So 50% of my budget is public safety, and everything else goes toward infrastructure.
Where's that money going to come from?
Well, you build your revenue, but basically it comes from state government and federal funding.
In 2021, Congress allocated more than $1 trillion to rebuild America's infrastructure. Louisiana Republican Senator Bill Cassidy was instrumental in negotiating that deal.
If you're talking about communities that are in genuine need of significant infrastructure help, if these communities are complaining that the federal government has not stepped up, how would you respond?
During the COVID epidemic, billions were sent to state and local educational authorities. But oftentimes when the federal government puts up dollars, the state and local pull back, and the net sum remains constant.
To date, the infrastructure law has funded more than 40,000 projects across the country. But in many cases, the money reaches communities like Baker too slowly. In 2016, a flood closed the high school, and ever since, students have had classes in the middle school building.
I would say I do feel forgotten about. Kind of ashamed, say what school you go to.
I feel mostly left out at the opportunity to be something bigger.
The water-damaged high school will reopen this fall, 8 years later.
We don't have that experience, like a bigger environment for us to grow in and flourish in, but I'm hopeful for the future.
In many American communities, that's something else America has been slow to rebuild: hope. For Eye on America, Mark Strassman, Baker, Louisiana.